And now, it's Boomer Life. Lifestyle discussion designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone.
And welcome to Boomer Life on CIL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. April is Parkinson's Awareness Month, and today, April 11th, 2017, is World Parkinson's Day. Now, for the next hour, we're going to be talking about this, what the disease is, how it can affect you and members of our community, and we'll also be joined by some expert guests from the Parkinson's Society of BC to help inform and educate. With me in the studio right now, we'll say hello to CEO of the Parkinson's Society of BC. This is Jean Blake. Jean, thanks for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Joanne.
So before we get into a little bit about your background, what does it mean, World Parkinson's Day?
Well, we do an awareness campaign every year focused around this day. This year in particular is really important because it's the 200th anniversary of the disease actually being described by Dr. Parkinson's. I think what we're trying to do is make people more aware about some of the myths and misunderstandings about the disease, who it affects. It can affect anyone. We're seeing, unfortunately, younger and younger cases being diagnosed. And I think also information about living well with the disease.
Today is World Parkinson's Day. So Jean Blake is a very experienced leader in nonprofit, private industry, healthcare, and education. You're a former CEO of the Alzheimer's Society of BC and a former executive director of the Canadian Diabetes Association, the Pacific region. So Jean also has an extensive background in organizational development, training, and leadership in all levels of government, healthcare, and education. So Jean, it's a pleasure to have you here. Whatever led you to the Parkinson's Society of BC? How did you end up here?
Well, I think I've been working with disease-based nonprofits for a few years now, and it's just an extension of an opportunity to provide some leadership for a disease that really is somewhat unknown, and we need to build more awareness about it and work towards finding a cure.
So tell us a little bit about the society, how it became, and it's been in British Columbia for some time now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's almost 50 years old. Basically, a group of well-meaning individuals, care partners and clinicians started it with the idea that people living with the disease could be better supported and educated about how to better manage their symptoms. And so that's largely the work of us today. We have a very small staff, about 10 of us. We are provincial, and we have 50 volunteer-led support groups across British Columbia. So we work hard with our volunteers to provide education and support to people living with the disease and their families and care partners. So
you have a main center here in Vancouver. How do you get your message out throughout the province?
Well, of course, now with technology, it's a lot easier. For example, we started a new service, counseling, short-term counseling, about 2 years ago. And you don't have to be in Vancouver to take advantage of that. You can do it by Skype or phone or some support aspects even through email. So we use technology. So our website is one of the main ways that we get messaging out. But this being April Parkinson's Awareness Month, we also have invested into a transit campaign. So here in Vancouver, at the waterfront station, people will walk out and see a large mural. We also have ads on 100 buses across the city, also in Victoria, Prince George, and Kelowna.
It's a great way to get the message out. It's actually a good time for me to also mention your website, which is parkinson.bc.ca, and you can find out more information there, of course. So tell us a little bit more about the campaign that you've launched for World Parkinson Day. It's you've titled it, "This is Parkinson's Disease." And what does that mean? What picture are you trying to paint here?
Well, I think there's been a traditional understanding that it's a disease of the older person. And yes, the number one risk factor is still aging. However, we are seeing it in many young people as well. You see one young woman, her parents started seeing some issues when she was 14. And she was actually then formally diagnosed in her 20s. And now she's on the wait list for a surgical intervention called deep brain stimulation. You'll see Richard, who you're going to talk to later on in the show, he's late 40s, I believe, and so he was diagnosed a number of years ago. And then there is a couple. They are older. They're in their 70s. They were both diagnosed with the disease within years of one another. So we're really trying to show that it doesn't discriminate. It can unfortunately hit anybody at any age.
So your campaign, your basic goal is to help reshape how we think about the disease. It's not just an old person's disease. It's you and me.
That's right. And I think the other issue is that people can live well with it for a long time. Yes, it is a progressive disease, but there are things that people can do to better manage the symptoms and to have as good a quality of life for as long as possible.
So what are some of the main issues that are facing the Parkinson community right now in British Columbia? What sort of projects are you working on right now?
Well, I think probably it's access to even getting a diagnosis. It is a very complex disease, and though general practitioners and even community neurologists often can diagnose it for the best treatment, we advise that people do see a movement disorder specialist, and there are very few of those in the province. A few located at the Pacific Parkinson's Research Centre. You're going to talk to its director later on. And there's an outpatient clinic at Surrey, Jim Pattison's outpatient centre, and also a half-day clinic in Kelowna. But that doesn't make very easy access. So our folks often have to wait as long as 2 to 3 years before they can get in to see a specialist.
Oh my, that's so unfortunate in this system. Do you have any numbers of what percentage of the population has been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease here in British Columbia?
Mm-hmm. The 2014-15 statistics from the BC Ministry of Health tell us just over 13,000.
Is that significant? Is this something that's significantly increasing over the years?
Yes, it is, because our earlier numbers were about 3 years previous to that, and they were saying a little over 8,000 at that time. So we are seeing an increase. And again, aging being the number one risk factor, that's probably largely where it's coming from, although we are hopefully also getting better at diagnosing the disease.
Can you tell us a little bit about fundraising efforts with the Parkinson's Society of BC, or what types of things do you do to encourage contributions to your society?
Sure. Well, pretty much all of our money comes from individual donations. We do have some wonderful events that happen during the year, and that's how people contribute. But a lot of it is just people feeling that they've either got a good service from us through attending one of our education events or getting resources from us. And so the philanthropic aspect of individuals kicks in.
Super. Is there anything you wanted to add about some of the guests that are on today's show? Dr. Martin McKeown, he's going to be in later today.
Yeah. Well, we're very, very privileged to have him as part of the team. He's got extensive background, which I'm sure you'll talk about a little bit with him. For me, I've got a bit of history with him because when I worked for Alzheimer's, I didn't know him at that time, but he was instrumental in linking an engineer at Simon Fraser University with a clinical researcher at UBC, and they did a very innovative brain mapping research project, which was helpful to be able to diagnose Alzheimer's, but also to be able to track the progress to some degree. And Dr. McKeown's got an engineering background as well as a medical background, and he was the link.
Oh, he'll be fascinating to talk to. And Richard Mayede is going to be here, and you know Richard, don't you?
Well, Richard, of course, we're very fortunate to have on our board of governors. We have
he's also your poster boy.
Yes, and he lent his image and story to our current April awareness campaign, and he's worked really hard to manage his disease not only with the appropriate medications but through the use of exercise.
Oh, he'll be fun. And our final guest on today's show is going to be, is it Dr. Laura, is it Mishley?
Yes, yeah, and she's from the U.S. We were fortunate to connect with her in September of 2016. There's a World Congress on Parkinson's that happens every 3 years, and we were there, and so was she. We have been unable to find a nutritionist, dietitian in British Columbia that has her expertise about Parkinson's disease, and so we actually brought her up for a conference last fall here in Victoria, and she has delivered information about diet and nutrition that is quite new to our community. And you'll hear how there is now, from research, we can see that there is a relationship between the gut and Parkinson's disease. And so what she has to say about nutrition is really of value to our community.
Yeah, we certainly look forward to that portion of the show as well. You're listening to Boomer Life. I'm Joanne Sutton, and April is Parkinson Awareness Month. Today, we're joined in studio with the CEO of the Parkinson Society of BC. Jean Blake is here, and you can always get more information online at parkinson.bc.ca. And many of you may be more aware of Parkinson disease with the likes of celebrities like Michael J. Fox, who went public with his diagnosis. But we're about to meet a 49-year-old man from Vancouver who lives with Parkinson's disease. We'll get a first-hand account of Richard's lifestyle when we come back. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.